You're live.
Good evening. Hello, I'm Chinta Strausberg, producer and host of On the Case, and I have a very, very interesting guest today. But we'll be back with more of the On the Case right after this.
Women have the power to transform this world. We can end crime and violence if we all agree to do one thing: share. Let's share our wisdom, share our time, share our talents, share our finances, but most of all, let's share our love. This is the female solution.
We're back. I'm Chinta Strasberg, producer and host of On the Case, and my guest today is Erica Nanton. And Erica is the community organizer for Saint Sabina Church, but she has a story that you don't want to miss. She grew up in a home where she was in a religion that kept her a prisoner. Erica, welcome to On the Case.
Hi, Chinta. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Tell us about your religion and it wasn't it's generational in your home. So tell us about that.
Yes, so I grew up as a Jehovah Witness, and it is generational. My mother was a Jehovah Witness. Well, I was raised and born a Jehovah Witness. My mother was raised and born a Jehovah Witness. My grandmother was raised and born a Jehovah Witness, and my great grandmother was a Jehovah Witness when the religion first began in the early 1900s.
Wow. So tell us about the religion and how you were actually a prisoner.
Yeah, so a lot of people might find that a little strange. I even, I know a lot of Jehovah Witnesses, former Jehovah Witnesses, but the one thing I always, when I tell my story, I'll always explain that, you have two kind of types of Jehovah Witnesses. You have uppercase J Jehovah Witnesses, and you have lowercase J Jehovah Witnesses. My family definitely uppercase J Jehovah Witnesses, multi-generational, not early converts. Most of the Jehovah Witnesses I know are converts. They converted to the religion from Christianity recently, or at the very least, a mother or a parent in the most recent past became a Jehovah Witness. But as far as the way my family is, it is a very strict following Jehovah Witness family to the T. No caveats, no deviations. And a part of that has to do with the religion's strict policies on association with those outside of the religion. So that includes classmates, that includes romantic relationships, that even includes your other family and family members who are not Jehovah Witnesses. So growing up, I had very strict rules on the kids I could play with and couldn't play with. We lived in a neighborhood in Florida called Mandarin at the time when I was really little, and I lived next to the playground, like across the street from the playground. So I would see all the little kids playing, and of course I wanted to play, but my mom would tell me I could not because they weren't Jehovah Witnesses. They don't know Jehovah. And so I had to sit through the glass and watch the other kids play, and I would cry, and it even extended into school because Jehovah Witnesses, as some people may know, do not celebrate most holidays. So no Christmas, no Thanksgiving, no birthdays, no Mother's Day, no Father's Day, no nothing. So most of the time in school, obviously, most people do have celebrations. So in class, you do activities and cupcakes and different things. Well, my mom made sure to contact each one of my teachers every year and explain to them my religious beliefs, hand them some pamphlets, and let them know that I, by no circumstances am I to participate in any of these things. So I would have to sit outside the classroom while the rest of the kids got gifts or exchanged cupcakes or had these fun things, or sometimes I would have to sit in the library by myself. And it was something that extended deep into not just my home life, but my school life as well. But it was very difficult because I have never been a shy kid. I've always been an extroverted person, and you've met me in person, Chica, so you already know. I'm very outgoing, and I've been that way since I was tiny. So it was very hard for me to be under such strict regulations of not being able to associate with other people my age.
Mhm. So how did that affect you psychologically now?
Oh, it had a deep effect on me. It really was difficult for me to have very close relationships, not because I wasn't capable of that, but because it was very hard for me as a kid to explain to another kid why we're so friendly in the playground, but I can't come to their birthday party. Why I can never come to the extracurriculars, even after school sports were forbidden activities because that would mean I have to associate with those kids. And like I said, we have uppercase J Jehovah Witnesses and lowercase J. Maybe some lowercase J Jehovah Witnesses let their kids still do a couple sports or things. But in uppercase J Jehovah Witness world that follows everything strictly to the watchtower and to the T, extracurricular sports are very frowned upon because it means you have to have extended association with kids who are not Jehovah Witnesses. I actually was very good at tennis, very, very good. My father, he was no longer Jehovah Witness. He left many years before. He was very enamored by Venus and Serena Williams, who had come out at that time. And I guess in his mind, I was going to eventually, be like them. And so he put a lot of effort into teaching me how to play tennis. So I was really good at tennis, and I got on to the tennis team. I like kind of snuck. I told my mom I had to do study courses or something, and I made it onto the tennis team. And then my mom found out, and she pulled me off of the team.
Oh,
Even though I was doing excellent, and I was so embarrassed. And it wasn't the first time. I was actually a stellar student, straight A's, mostly honors. I won the science fair, I won the spelling bee, I went to regionals. Like, I was an exceptional student. So I got a lot of opportunities. My mom would rip up permission forms for me to go to Washington, D.C. She would rip up opportunities. She wouldn't fill out my FAFSA for college because that was also frowned upon. So it was really, really difficult. It was like I was stuck in a box that was meant for me, but a box that I eventually refused to stay in, which I think is what shaped me into the person that I am today.
and so, well, what about when you start thinking about boys? How did they
Huh.
handle that?
Well, I'll put it this way. In the Jehovah Witness religion, that was very difficult. So thank goodness it was boys. Because it would have been even tougher for me if it wasn't boys. But it was already tough when I naturally started to find affiliation and traction to young guys around me. And so obviously, you have those coming of age, like rite of passage things as a child or a young person, like prom, homecoming, other things that are big, that are very significant, especially in African American culture. And unfortunately, I was forbidden to attend those things. I couldn't go to homecoming, couldn't go to prom, couldn't do those things. But I started to become very like, liked and making friends, and so it was really hard to like not want to go and not want to be a part. So I did make it to homecoming. I don't know how I concocted it. My mom is a professional seamstress, so she makes beautiful gowns and dresses. She can do it just by eye shot. So I convinced her to work on a dress with me, but not maybe her not knowing that it was my home. Yes. And she was like, "What is this dress for, Erica?" And I was like, "A special ceremony for smart kids." I don't know what I said, but I ended up with this beautiful gown, and I was like, "Yep, parents can't come." I don't know how. I think now that I look at it, that I'm a parent, I'm older. I think now that I look at it, she might have known, and I think there was a part of her that wanted me to look pretty in the dress we made together, and she just was like, it was like one of those don't ask, don't tell situations. I don't know, but like I think there's no way she couldn't have figured it out eventually. But I did get to go to homecoming because of that, but I did not get to go to prom. And then when I started to actually be interested in dating, that became a whole huge debacle.
Yeah.
Even dating another Jehovah Witnesses, which is the rules. If you are going to date, it has to be another Jehovah Witness, and it has to be heading towards marriage. It cannot just be for fun or for recreational purposes. You all have to pretty much be about to be married, and you're not allowed to be alone together. You have to be chaperoned at all times. So very, very strict. So, me being sheltered my whole life, I was tired. I was tired of all of the strictness. So of course there was a little bit of rebellious streak in me. My dad surprised me with a car as a gift for doing so well in school. My mom was livid. Um, he taught me how to drive. He got me the car. My mom was livid, but I had a job. I had a little job, and also, going to and from school. So I used that little bit of freedom to, see a guy and date. But it turned out horrible. I got caught. I got found out, and I got into humongous trouble with the congregation elders. And I was brought before a tribunal, and it's always men, a tribunal of men, older men.
Wait
I
a
was
minute.
just a teenager.
They took you before a tribunal?
Yes, I had to go before a tribunal of elders, all
Ugh.
men, about five of them. And I was just a teenage girl. And they began to ask me some of the most graphic sexual questions that were just so inappropriate of what did I have sex? What kind of sex? What kind of way did I have the sex? What kind of
Oh,
organs touched what organs? What kind of fluids touched what, like with a teenage girl. And the thing was, because I was a minor, my mother was there, but she was there. That was also traumatizing because she sat there while they did it. And it was traumatizing. And basically, the way it works is if you do not answer their questions in a way that they feel satisfactory, you will be punished. And punishment in the Jehovah Witness religion means ostracism and shunning, meaning that you become a shunned person who is no longer to be associated with by the congregation members and even your own family members at a certain point, which is what ended up happening to me.
that is terrible. I mean, that must have been very traumatic for you as a teenage girl. And what
Yes.
right do they have to do that, to get so personal with you?
It's a part of the doctrine. There is no privacy. There is no, the way that religion works, you have no privacy. You have no right to a life of your own. That is non-existent. Everything is they feel is their business. It is a high control. The proper word is high control group. We say cult. I don't mind calling it a cult, but the proper word is a high control group.
I see. And so did the women in the organization say anything to interrupt this questioning of you, badgering you, or
That's
were
a
they
great
silent?
question. Yeah, that's a great question. So the way that it works in Jehovah Witness religion, women have no power. Women are not allowed to be elders. Women are not allowed to hold any positions of leadership whatsoever. It is so strict to the point where if a group of women are there for Bible study or field, like the field ministry where you knock on doors, and there is no male elder or person of status available, but there's a little boy there, a 7-year-old boy, 8-year-old boy. That 7-year-old, 8-year-old boy has to lead the group of older women. The women are still not allowed to lead if even a 7-year-old boy is present. And if it is all women, then they do get to do like a prayer or something, but you are not allowed to have any leadership. So that means that there are no elder women or leadership role women in those rooms during those interrogations. The only woman that was in there with me was my mother, and that was only because I was a minor. I was a child, but she just sat there, while they did it. She interjected at all, not at all, unless they asked her a question about my whereabouts or how long did you know about this. And I believe she was not asked to be in that room to protect me. She was asked to be in that room just in case they needed to interrogate her as well, to see her level of responsibility in my so-called bad behavior. Maybe she had been lax, maybe she wasn't disciplining me properly, maybe she wasn't supervising me properly. So she was actually on trial too, honestly, now that I look back on it, not there to protect me. So she was very quiet and still, like frozen until they asked her a question. Because it's a terrifying experience in that religion. Because you're up before the tribunal. You're up for judgment, you know.
And so when I talked to the officials, spokesperson rather, at the Jehovah Witness headquarters, he denied everything you just said. He said that
Of course.
there are women who are like, he didn't use the word ministers, but elders or whatever you call them there, and in leadership positions. And he just basically called you a liar.
Yeah, of course he did.
But I
Of
didn't
course he
believe
did.
him. And
Yeah.
yeah, I did not believe
Um,
him.
yeah. So my story is not unique. My story is the story of millions of Jehovah Witnesses, former Jehovah Witnesses, all throughout the decades who have the same story as me. You can look it up easily. Google is free. They have written blogs, they have written articles, they have done video interviews. I am not the first interview. Recently, a woman by the name of Leah Remini, who is a former Scientologist, she did an entire Netflix series on Scientology and surviving that high control group. And in her research, she found out about Jehovah Witnesses and how much it was so similar. So she decided to dedicate an entire special to the Jehovah Witness organization, and she had an entire panel of guests on that Netflix special from the Jehovah Witness organization. And when I watched it, it was like hearing my story 10 times over again.
Mhm.
So they can lie all they want, but our testimonies outweigh and will always outweigh their lies.
No, I believe you. And I did used to work with a woman who was a Scientologist, and she gave me her story. I was not a reporter at that time. I was in radio, and at the end, the next day, she called me and begged me, "Do not run the story." And I said, "Okay," but she said it was okay. She says, "No, because they'll kill me." I said, "Wait a minute, you're talking about a religion and murder?"
Hmm.
But it
Yeah,
was very
and that's the
similar to
thing.
what you said.
Yeah, so with the Jehovah Witnesses, as far as I know, you know what I mean. I'm not here to falsely accuse anybody of anything. As far as I know, they don't go that far. They don't unalive people. However,
Mhm.
however, the way the Jehovah Witnesses work is they psychologically assassinate and,
Yes.
and unalive you through disconnecting your family relationships. I haven't spoken to my mother in over 10 years. She won't answer my phone calls. My grandmother is 93 years old and helped raise me. And
So you have not seen them, and they've divorced you.
I called my grandmother. She lives in the Bahamas. She's Caribbean. She lives in the islands. She moved back, and I called. I got a calling card, everything, so that I could call long distance. And she picked up the phone, but she would not say a word. And I just, on the other end, just kept saying, Grammy, 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 it's me, it's me. She called me Suge. I say, it's me, Suge, it's me, Erica. I knew she was there, but she wouldn't say a word. That is
I'm sorry.
how controlling.
I am very sorry you have to go through that. And this is 2025, and this religion began in the 1800s by a white man. Is
It
that
was, yeah,
true?
the early 1900s is when it began by Charles Taze Rutherford. It was like the founder of the religion.
Yeah.
And he himself was like, I believe, a Seventh Day Adventist, and then he broke off from that because apparently that wasn't strict enough. And so he just broke off from there and started to put out these magazines that later became known as the Watchtower magazines. So my great grandmother, when she became involved, they used to still use the phonograph machine to play his records and his preaching and his teaching. And later, upon doing some more research, I found out why there was such an appeal to Black people at the time. And it was because, like my people, like my great grandmother, and it was because one of the teachings that was prevalent then was that Jehovah God would change Black people from Black to white as a part of their promise, paradise promise. So you would no longer have to be Black anymore. And obviously, that would sound absurd to us now, but in the early 1900s, that might have sounded like a promise to a lot of Black people who felt like there was no hope for their plight, you know, and they were willing to believe and hope for anything. So it was a lot of anti-Blackness involved in that. But yeah, it was definitely started by a white man. And it just evolved into this, multinational, international, global, multi-billion dollar organization now. And they have tons of money. They span the globe with millions and millions of members still. The only difference is that now, because of technology and the internet and different things like that, it's much harder to control people than it was back in the days because people have so much access to information now.
Yes.
So it's just harder. So there are a lot of groups now online for former Jehovah Witness and survivors, we call ourselves, of the religion who talk. And there's a group in there called PIMO, PIMO, and it stands for physically in but mentally out. So these are people who still attend the kingdom halls, are still a part of the active Jehovah Witness religion, but they are mentally out. They already know it's a cult, they know it's high control, they don't believe in what they're selling, but they're too afraid to leave because they will lose their family members or they will lose their, community or whatever connections they have. And so those PIMOs, what they do is on the support groups is that they help those of us who have left, who still have family members that are in it, update us on what's being taught, what's being shown, like what is being changed, like different things so we can be up to date. And I recently learned that they're starting to make some changes on the shunning doctrine because number one, they've been getting sued left and right all
Yes, I
over
know.
the globe.
Yes.
They've been getting sued left and right for all types of things. So right now, and then like with the social media and internet, it's starting to become harder to hide these policies and these egregious ways that they have. Leah Remini making a Netflix series, blogs and posts. It's just starting being harder to hide it. It's a stain on them because you can't really justify it, right? And so now they've put out magazines and watchtowers saying, well, you can talk to your ex Jehovah Witness family members a little, like just to invite them to the Kingdom Hall, of course, or to help them come back to Jehovah. But you can at least answer their phone call. But the thing that just absolutely is beyond egregious to me is the way that they change something for their own benefit while it was destroying lives for decades, destroying families and destroying lives. And they said it was the word of God. The unequivocal word of God is why they were doing it. But now that it is not beneficial to them anymore, now they're changing those rules and those laws. And it is just the most egregious to me way about going about things. And I think that's why I do what I do today. I think that's why I fight for justice the way that I do as a community organizer, as somebody who fights for social justice. I think it's because I know what it's like to live under such injustice. I know what it's like to not feel like you have a voice, to not feel like you have a way out. To not, as the question was earlier, did anybody say anything? Did any of the women speak up? And not having people speak up for you, not having people to see what's going on or say anything, and how helpless that feels, how hopeless that feels. And I just never want anybody to feel that way.
Absolutely. We're going to take a break. We'll be back with more of On the Case right after this.
Soulful Chicago Black History Book Fair.
Hey family, this is Charles Humphrey of MCH Publishing, and I'm here with Asada. And we at the Soulful Chicago Book what?
This is the Soulful Chicago Black History Book Fair, slamming.
We getting down in Hyde Park. Just run it down, my sister. Just tell us, for the people, a little bit about what we're doing here today and why.
This is the Soulful Chicago Black History Book Fair. And this month is very important. I feel like we don't give it the type of recognition that it needs. But beyond that, I do all things literary. And we have so many ancestors that have taken a tradition of writing and done great things. Well, we have those of us that are carrying on that tradition, and nobody knows about them until now. So the Soulful Chicago Black History Book Fair is allowing us to tell our stories according to ourselves for our own benefit. And it's just beautiful. I mean, she could have been here today if you wasn't here. But if you were, it's been amazing. People came in consistently, children, and we have children's authors. We have nonfiction authors. We have fiction authors. This is really good. And it's about taking our own power in our own hands and doing what we do on the literary tip, though.
Right.
I gotta work, but I can't help it. Everything going to school. And I just bring my African shit like this. Bring it back.
All right, we're back. I'm Chinta Strausberg, producer and host of On the Case. We're talking to Erica Nanton, and she is the community organizer for Saint Sabina Church. And your story is so hurtful to know that you have to go through that as a child. And I'm wondering, how does that affect you as an adult?
Well, definitely a good therapist. Never heard anything. So I definitely believe in mental health care and seeking out that as much as possible. And then also just for my own personal growth, it's also for me to have a community. Community is very important to me. A healthy community is very important to me because that is, to me, one of the pillars that really helps you to stay stable in what can be a very unstable world. One of the ways that the Jehovah Witness organization punishes you is by snatching your community. And the way that they do that is they are the ones who give you your community. Like, you don't really get to choose your community. You don't get to build your community. They give it to you. And because they give it to you and say you're not allowed to associate with anybody else outside of it, it becomes all you have. So it becomes the best weapon of control because now they can take away something so foundational, especially as a growing person, which is your sense of safety and community and security in this world. And that if you mess up or if you do something they don't like or say something they don't like, then they can remove that from you down to the most essential relationships, like a mother, grandmother, down to your most essential relationship. And that becomes something that puts fear in the hearts of the biggest, strongest, grownest men or biggest, strongest, grownest people. That is something that terrifies them. And that's the only reason a lot of them are still even in that religion to this day.
Wow. So now, how did you break loose? How did you cut the umbilical cord of the Jehovah Witness religion?
I think for me, it was just I had an aha eye opener. Even I was like 17, is even younger than that at the time, but it was this eye-opening moment when they put me on a restrictive status because of my transgressions or whatever. And I was basically under like observation, under watch, like probation almost, to see if I could be restored. And in order to do that, you have to do everything right. And even if you do everything right, there's no guarantee of when you'll ever be restored. And the way that the threat goes is that Armageddon, the destruction of the world, can come any day. And while you're under restriction, if judgment came today, you'd be destroyed, So as a little kid, you're learning this from a child. It really is scary to you, You feel like you're always waiting for the other shoe to drop, But you really believe this stuff. Like, that's what people don't understand about high control groups, aka cults. Like, you really believe this stuff. Like, you really believe it. And so, especially when you're born in it, like, nothing else, And so I was terrified. So I was constantly trying to be on my P's and Q's, do everything they asked of me, but still no restoration. And then one day they called me into the tribunal room again. And this time I'm like, okay, this must be it. They must be about to tell me that I'm finally restored. But in the meeting, instead, they told me that they needed me to show more of my loyalty to Jehovah. And I asked, okay, well, what else do I need to do? And they said, we feel like your father, who had been kicked out of the religion years prior, who I had still had a relationship with, obviously, my dad, and I was a minor, so legally they couldn't keep us apart. And my parents were divorced, but they had a shared custody agreement, so I saw my dad and things like that. He's in my life. They said, if you want to show your true loyalty to Jehovah, that you need to stop talking to your father, your former Jehovah Witness father.
That's terrible.
And I was like, what? They said, yeah, you need to, and this was back when people still wrote a lot of letters, but they were like, you need to write them a letter and then just let them know that you don't want anything else to do with them. I was like, and then will I finally, get my, like, is this what I, like, basically it was like unspoken, but this is what you have to do to be restored, basically. And when I tell you, Chinta, I did it. I did it. That's how brainwashed, that's how indoctrinated I was. So a part of me is hurt to the depths of my soul at what my grandmother and mother are doing. But there is another part of me that knows what it's like to be that brainwashed. I also know what it's like. Um, and so I did it. I wrote the letter, sent it to him. My dad later told me that he had never been so devastated in his whole entire life. I broke his heart.
Well, that is terrible. I'm just so sorry you had to go through that. And I'm still kind of worried about how today can you trust people now?
I tell you this, and I don't think I've ever really shared this before, but one thing that I've learned is that a lot of times people who are constantly like, can't trust nobody, can't trust nobody, don't trust, don't trust, don't trust. I hear it, and I sit back and I listen. But most of them don't know my story or much about me when they say these things. And I say to myself, I have every reason to be that kind of person, but I'm not. And I realized something is that a lot of times when people don't trust anybody, it's because they're not trustworthy and they know it. And so the way that I deal with this is to be who I want to be in my life and me be that. So if I meet people that I can trust, then I strive to be a person who can be trusted because I'm the only person that I can control. I can't control my mother. I can't control my grandmother. I can't control anybody else. The only person whose character and decisions and heart that I can do something about is my own. So I can make sure that there's at least one person in this world who is got goodwill for people or is trustworthy or is not out to get you, and the only person I can make sure that that is Erica Nanton.
I understand that. So, do you? I know they don't want to talk to you anymore, or they can't talk to you anymore. But do you write letters to your mom and your grandmother anyway?
Yeah, so I actually have an update since the last time when you wrote your article. Um, just this right before the holidays, my older brother contacted me. He's also shunned. He was also shunned as well, by our mother and grandmother. But he was reached out to by an uncle of ours who's Jehovah Witness, and that uncle was chatting him up, talking to him, and very interesting. And he mentioned, you should reach out to your mom, which is his sister. You should reach out to your mom. And my brother was like, should he was like, she doesn't talk to us. Like she doesn't talk to me. What do you mean reach out to her? And so he's like, is everything okay? He's like, yeah, but maybe you should. And so he did, and she answered.
Oh,
And yeah, and they had a whole conversation. She said some weird Jehovah Witnessy stuff about, how he's gonna be destroyed one day and he needs to come back to Jehovah. I mean, it happened. It happens every single conversation. We're not shocked on that one. But she did talk to him. And my grandmother was there, and it was just like when he told me this, I was like, wow. And that's when it hit me about what I had read on the ex Jehovah Witness support group site from the PMOs about how the new articles were saying you can talk to your family members a little bit now. And I started putting two and two together that my mother and my uncle and them, they've read those new articles that are now basically giving them some permission to speak to us again, and that's why they're doing it. But that right there, Chinta, is what is so egregious. It just goes to show the level of control that organization has and has had the entire time.
boy,
With the
it has
stroke
not.
of a pen,
Mhm.
with the stroke of a pen in a Watchtower article, they were able to take my mother, who wouldn't answer our calls for almost a decade, to speaking to us again. That means they could have done that this entire time. And that's wickedness. That's evil.
Absolutely, it is. Right, we're going to take another break. We'll be back with more of On the Case right after this. Thank you, Erica.
No problem.
What's up, guys? It's Osada, the host of the Gathering of the Griots podcast, part of the Female Solution. Want you to join us every Tuesday morning from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. And guess what we do? We interview authors of the Soulful Chicago Book Fair. The books, the experiences, the lifestyles, all of it with fervor. So be there right on the Soulful Chicago Book Fair YouTube page or on the Female Solution Facebook page. We look forward to having you and all our literary essence. Peace.
Welcome to Masterforce with Mushin Suit. Join us each week on Thursdays at 7 a.m. Central, live on Facebook and YouTube on the Female Solution page. As we dive into powerful topics designed to assist you in mastering your life force, our conversations feature a diverse lineup of experts, all dedicated to your growth. Tune in weekly to discover new ways to elevate your spirit and raise your vibration. And remember, we are ascending.
We're back. I'm Chinta Strausberg, producer and host of On the Case, and my very special guest is Erica Nanton, and she is the organizer, the community organizer for St. Sabina Church. And of course, that's headed by Father Michael Louis Flager. Thank you again for being on the Case and for sharing such a personal story. And it's important because I never thought that, I mean, I did the story, a while back, but I never thought that it was that you went through so much more as a child. And I still don't know how you can get around and think clearly without the pain of the past as an adult.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, it comes and it goes because when you live something for so long,
Yeah.
You learn how to cope. You learn how to have. I've lived so much life. I'm a mother now myself. I have so I graduate. I ended up not only going to college, I ended up graduating college with honors. I've done work at the United Nations in Geneva, Switzerland. I've spoken before world leaders. Like, I wish my mother knew me. I wish she knew me now,
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, it didn't take away the beautiful things that I've got to experience in life and the beautiful moments. Um, there are just moments of pain sometimes. Like when I'm in the grocery store, like around the holiday season, I'm getting stuff, and I see my mom is a very beautiful dark skinned Caribbean woman, and my grandmother is like my mom is taller than me, and is very statuesque looking, and my grandmother is shorter. And whenever I see a woman around my mom's complexion and height with an older woman with her, I do a double take. I'll be honest. And I'm in the middle of Chicago. I know that they're not here in Chicago cognitively, but a part of me turns twice to see it might be them.
It triggers your past. That's what happens. And that's
Yeah.
understandable. All right. So now, how did you meet Father Michael Flager?
So, oh my goodness. Okay, so I was like in finding out that I was going to be living in the area. I wanted to find a home church. And I had just been looking around, and I just saw this church that was just out there doing like protesting, and like I was just like, what church is this? Who are these people? Like, I was like, I gotta go check this out. So I found out where the church was, and I went and visited. And around that time, Father Mike was being asked to speak at an MLK. Like, he's spoken at a lot of MLK commemorations and events, but it was one back then that he was going to be speaking at. And he made an announcement to the congregation that he had been asked to do it. And I don't know if it was like his first one, but it was like everybody was super excited and cheering. And so I remember feeling excited too, even though I was new there. And I collect vinyl records. It's just like a hobby I have. I love collecting vinyls. Like I love, and like the older the better. I love the crackly noises. I love just the old school ones. And I love when elders like gift me with old records. And one of the oldest ones I had was from a man that he's passed away now, rest his soul. But it was a MLK speech, Drum Measure for Justice on vinyl, like the original speech. And you could tell that this older man bought it when it happened. Like it like just by looking at the case, okay? And he gave it to me for my social justice work. And I just prized that record. And I remember I dusted it off and I put a note and I put it in like a little bag. And when I saw Father Mike the next Sunday, I said, "Hi, my name's Erica." And I was like, and I think it's so cool that you're going to speak at the Martin Luther King event. And I just really would like you to borrow this. And it's very, very special. I told him it's very, very old. So please be careful with it. I was like, but if you have a record player, I think you should listen to it before you give your speech. And he said, "Thank you so much, Erica." And he took great care of it. Oh my goodness. And he brought it back to me with a note attached saying, "Thank you, Erica, for this wonderful, for letting me use this wonderful record." It was just so beautiful. And then after that, I went on the March to Springfield because I had gotten involved in social justice work from college. And I was just about to embark on the March to Springfield. Marching on foot from Chicago all the way to the state capital of Springfield when we didn't have a budget. And when I went to March, Father Mike heard about it, and I asked him if he would be willing to speak at the launch because he's such a social justice voice, and we would love him to be our send-off voice as we begin our procession and we begin our march. It took us 2 weeks and 200 miles. And Father Mike not only gave the most powerful send-off speech I can ever remember in my life, but we have been friends ever since. And when I got back from the march, he gave me a gift basket with Massage Envy gift cards for my feet. And he's amazing. I love Father Mike.
Okay. That so but now I understand that you caught his eye when you marched 200 miles to Springfield?
200 miles on foot.
Huh?
200 miles on foot. It was a small group of us, and we marched 200 miles on foot from the Thompson Center all the way to the state capitol. And we made stops throughout the way. And this was back when Donald Trump first became president, so it was Trump country in rural parts of Illinois. And we were making stops all throughout. We were doing what we called listening sessions with the group that I was with. And we were talking to different people in the rural areas to let them know that this lack of a budget in our state is affecting all of us. It doesn't matter if you live in the hood in Southside Chicago or in a rural area right here. We're all going to lose our medical care. We're all losing our services. This is affecting us all. And at that time, I had just lost a very close family friend. You had the picture up a while ago. His name was Elijah Murphy, who was shot and killed that year. And Father Mike did a procession with all the crosses made by, I believe his name is Greg Tanis, made those crosses with all the names of the victims of violence that year. And it was so many. I just remember it was so many crosses.
It was very cold that day too.
And it was very cold that day. And I remember looking for Elijah Murphy's name, and I found him. And in honor of his family, I decided, they said when we marched that we should all bring something with us that was significant to us. Like I had a friend who was marching with me, and she was undocumented immigrant, and she had just graduated from college. So she brought her cap from her cap and gown. And somebody else brought another thing, and I decided to bring the cross, the biggest thing there, and I'm like the smallest person. So I'm very ambitious, and I just thought, you know what, I can carry this. This is going to be easy. I'll take a couple breaks here and there. Well, it wasn't that easy. So what happened was I ended up needing help the entire time to carry the cross, go figure. And it ended up turning out to be such a beautiful story because as we marched, people were like, "Can I help you carry that? Can I help you carry that?" Black people, white people, Latino people, young people, older people, men, women, everybody. Can I help you carry that? And as we got down to the rural areas, it was folks that you would think are full Trump supporting rural folks. Can I help you carry that? You know what I'm saying? Like, it was just everybody was asking me to help them if they could help me. So when I got to the end, when we did a listening session at one of the churches towards the end of our journey, and I changed my message. And I said, you guys, I've been talking about some certain things on these listening sessions, but I have a new message today. And it's called, Can I Help You Carry That? At the end of the day, we all have our struggles. We all have our crosses. We have racial injustice, systemic injustice. Black folks are being divested in our community. We got ICE attacking in immigrant communities and Latino folks. We got all of these different injustices happening all at the same time, and we all want to fight for our thing. But the truth of the matter is that the only way we're going to make it to our destination is if sometimes we stop and say, can I help you carry that? That's it.
Absolutely. That's very beautiful. We're going to take our last break. We'll be back with more with Erica Nanton on the Case right after this.
Hi, I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're 3 Black moms.
And in case you didn't notice the resemblance, we're also 3 sisters.
We're going to be coming to you every week, sharing our successes and our mistakes as we navigate our lives as moms, wives, sisters, daughters, and of course, Black women in today's world.
We'll talk about it all: race, politics, religion, economics, culture, and we'll take a look at everything from whether or not to use corporal punishment to how do you teach your children about sex.
Look for our upcoming book, Growing Up Charles. It's a personal story about our lives growing up in Maple Park on Chicago's South Side. I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're 3 Black moms. Follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel, 3 Black Moms.
Leaders of nonprofits empowering worlds. Let's go.
But the vision that God gave me, I felt that it was time for me to step out and work on the vision that God gave me.
We need look no further. We have a unique voice. We have a unique talent pool.
We're back. I'm Chinta Strausberg, producer and host of On the Case. My guest is Erica Nanton, and she is the community organizer for Saint Sabina Church. So tell me some of the things that you have done for the church organizing. I remember the last one, there were just all kind of ethnic groups, and they were fighting against, what was that about?
Yeah, so this was when we had a lot of the migrants that were coming to Chicago. And
how do you feel about that too? The fact that they're treated so badly by a president who is the grandson of an immigrant, whose wife is an immigrant, and her parents were immigrants.
Tell it, okay? And you're talking to the daughter of an immigrant. My mother, who I've been talking about, is not an American citizen. She's not originally American. She's from the Caribbean, from the Bahamas. So is my grandmother. On that side of my family, I'm a first-generation American, me and my brother. Now, on my father's side, they are Black Americans. I think people call it Indigenous Americans, original Black Americans, descendant of American and African enslaved here in America on my father's side. So I understand kind of the both worlds of that in that instance, but I do know that if it wasn't for people crossing borders, I wouldn't exist. Okay. Literally, my parents wouldn't have met. Okay. So, I mean, I have a lot of feelings about the way that immigrants are treated. And I asked my dad one time, Dad, did you care if mommy had papers? Or he was like, Erica, he's like, boo, that's how he talked. He was like, I wouldn't have cared if your mama floated here on a thumbtack. Okay. And so, you know what I mean? When people fall in love, they fall in love. So I totally understand that plight in that sense. And then I also understand the frustration of the African American community. Don't get me wrong. I understand that frustration of like, how long do we have to wait for somebody to notice, what is going on with us? But what we need to understand is it's not an either or. It's a both and. So some of the work you saw me doing with the migrant communities is we were doing those Spanish classes, if you remember, because I'm also multilingual. I'm originally from South Florida. I speak multiple languages, and Spanish is one of my stronger second languages. So I was helping to teach the class, but it was connected to some more work that we were doing, organizing with some other local organizations where we were bringing together the migrant community and the Black community, particularly around the area where a school had been shut down to use as migrant housing, and it was causing a lot of tension in the community. And so with my work at the United Nations, I was versed on how they use the translation equipment, like at the UN. And so I worked with some organizations here locally, like UCAD and different immigrant organizations who do use translation equipment to bring translators in. And we actually had a room with Black community members and migrants with the equipment on, with translators, so that everybody could understand each other. Mm-hmm. And by doing that, they were able to share stories and understand each other's stories. And we were able to debunk a bunch of myths that people were believing about each other. We were able to actually, everybody was able to see the humanity in each other, and that we're not really a competition, but we're being pit against each other.
Yes.
And I made a statement, and I said, as bad as this sounds, it's the truth. Do y'all really want them to stop sending? Because this is when they were sending bus after bus after bus after bus of migrants. I was like, do y'all really want them to stop sending buses of migrants to Chicago? And some of them were like, yeah, let's look at these, people were mad. I was like, all right, well then let's start organizing with migrants. Let's get translation equipment and start organizing with migrants in solidarity against the system that's screwing all of us. And I bet you they won't send another bus.
That's true. Well, they were just trying to make it look bad for a Black mayor, just like they are sending those so-called police to different cities headed by Black mayors. And
yeah, absolutely. There is a ploy, and it's not just the mayors themselves. It's also what those mayors are standing for, right? It's all of these progressive policies like we're seeing even with Mandami and like in New York and different things. They are trying to protect their capital. They're trying to protect the system that keeps enriching them. And a part of that is to keep us desperate. They have to have a desperate populace in order to continue to make the type of revenues they make. And so when we start to rise up and take control as workers, take control as citizens, take control as the people, that is a direct threat. So if you have mayors or people in power who are a part of perpetuating those types of policies, they're definitely going to be attacked, for sure.
Absolutely. And I wish that we would have more unity between the immigrants and the African American community, because it's still bad feelings there, and it really shouldn't be, because when that happens, they win and we lose. They're only giving us crumbs in the first place.
Absolutely. And I can tell you, as the daughter of immigrants, and my immigrant family is Black, okay? We're Black immigrants, but still Caribbean people. But I can tell you right now, the indoctrination that happens in migrant in other countries is white supremacists. Yes. When it comes to the view of Black Americans, they see movies where we're depicted as thugs and drug dealers, and the type of media that they get, the type of indoctrination they get overseas and in the islands regarding Black Americans, it is not conducive to them feeling like, oh, these are people I want to get to know. You know what I mean? And then vice versa, we as Black Americans get fed this idea of their criminality, their inferiority, their lack of belonging or worthiness. So it causes there, because it would be the worst nightmare of this system if we joined forces.
Absolutely. And I know my husband, my late husband's father, when they came through Ellis Island, they were told that African Americans had tails. And he believed that. And he was in the Marine, and he got in a fight with one of his best friends who was Black. And he says they were calling each other names. And all of a sudden he says, my husband said to him, well, you have a tail. He said, what are you talking about? Well, you have a tail. My daddy told me you had a tail. So he pulled his pants down and showed him he didn't have a tail. And they just rolled over and started laughing. And they were very, very close after that. So the racism continues. Back then, that was a long time ago, because my late father-in-law was a Holocaust survivor, and they started that back then. It's just, this racism thing is so deep, and with this president, Trump, it's worse. It's absolutely worse.
It's definitely worse, and but the thing, like you just mentioned, is the tale is old as time. This is not a new playbook. And that is where I think a lot of those who are following behind this MAGA movement and Trump movement, they don't realize that those of us who do this, those of us who are community organizers and are in this work, we have a blueprint that was left for us, much so in the blood of other people who came before us. So we are not reinventing some wheel, and neither are they. So while they think they're saying something new and jazzy, they're not. It's like literally reiterations of the same thing that our ancestors fought against, just with different coded language and maybe like a slightly different shift of term or whatever. But those of us who actually do this, we know what we're looking at. And I don't think they know that we know that what we're looking at, to the point where they feel so bold to do it. And that's why more of us need to start speaking up.
Absolutely. So as a community organizer now, what should we be doing to bring not just the immigrant community together, but the community as a whole, to fight this man in the office who's, to me, illegally there? What do we do? How do we fight back? Because we don't have the numbers.
Well, that's the thing. What Malcolm X say? He goes, we are being out organized. At the end of the day, we're not outnumbered. We're out organized. There's actually way more of us than there are of them. I always say that what we're actually looking at is a reiteration of like the Civil War, the Confederacy and the Union, right? What we are actually looking at in the United States right now is a civil war between two different groups of white people. That's what we're actually watching.
You're right about that, because neither Harris nor Trump received the majority of the vote. It was almost. So it's like half of America is like Trump, and the other half is like Harris or Biden. And it's just, it's hurtful to watch that.
But you want to know something, Chinta? The largest voting demographic in this country are not Democrats, nor Republicans, or independents. The largest voting bloc in this country are people who don't vote. That demographic outnumbers all the parties combined.
Well, this last election, that's why Trump is in the office. I mean, he did some dirty things with the organized, or he had groups organizing to knock off blacks by the millions, but still it was like 5 million blacks, I believe, stayed at home. They went fishing, and they shouldn't have.
And you want to know something? The one thing, you could say what you want, and Trump is a horrible person, but the one thing he did tap into is he tapped into getting those people out who typically don't participate. He was able to achieve that on his side.
But he did so using racism.
Oh, exactly. Exactly. Of course he did it with evil, in an evil way. But what I'm saying is that he did it. And if the other side can maybe take some clues, that maybe Mom Donnie was a bit of an example, right? There is a huge swath of people that we can use justice to get excited. We can use equity to get excited. We can use a good economic policy just economic policy, wealth distribution. We can use so many positive things to get involved, the way that Trump used evil to get the inactive involved. And that is what needs to happen on the other side. But until we do that, it's going to be a long fought battle.
Absolutely. So I understand you're going to school.
Yes. So I am working on becoming a future attorney. So please pray for me. It has been quite the journey. I really appreciate all of it. as you know, I'm a mom, so I just juggle a lot and just making some decisions for how I'm gonna move forward with that. But I really appreciate all the support, and I appreciate you having me on the show.
Well, I appreciate your coming. Well, we're almost out of time, so I'm wishing you the best of luck. And I know you're a great mom, and your little boy is so sweet.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you.
All right, so we'll be back next week with more of On the Case.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too.
We've come to the end of our show today. If you missed any broadcasts, go to our website for the audio and video archives at www.thefemalesolution.com. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to thank all of you who participated in today's discussions. And to our global family joining us from all around the world, we say thank you. To our family in China, xie xie. India, dhanyavad. Japan, arigato. Korea, kamsamnida. Russia, spasiba. Germany, danke. Poland, dziękuję. France, merci. Spain, gracias. Italy, grazie. Egypt, shukran. Ghana, madasi. Nigeria, eshe. South Africa, ngiyabonga. Senegal, jareh. Kenya, asante. Israel, toda. Pakistan, shukriya. Afghanistan, tashakur. Saudi Arabia and Palestine, shukran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Thank you, and may peace be upon you and the mercy of God and God's blessings.